The compass was my fault. I want to be clear about that before anything else. The navigation exercise went wrong because I was overconfident about something I didn't actually know how to do, and I led my group, 3 strangers and 1 wilderness survival instructor, approximately 2 miles in the wrong direction before the lights started going and Daniel stopped walking and said, quietly, "Where do you think we are?" I looked at the compass. I looked at the tree line. I looked at Daniel. "I may have made an error," I said. The 3 strangers looked at me with varying degrees of alarm. Daniel looked at me with an expression I would come to recognize as his default, calm, assessing, and completely free of the panic that the situation perhaps warranted. "Okay," he said. "Here's what we do. My name is Sera. I am 31 years old and I am, professionally, the person who knows what to do. I manage a team of 12 at a logistics company. I have been told I am intimidating in a way that reads as complimentary, but isn't always meant that way. And I signed up for this wilderness survival course because my company required it after what we were calling the team building incident of last March, which I will not go into except to say that it involved a ropes course, a misread waiver, and a level of chaos that I personally found preventable. The course ran Thursday through Sunday, 4 days. A mix of civilians, 2 corporate groups, and 1 man named Daniel who had volunteered with search and rescue for 8 years and now ran these weekends with the kind of authority that came not from volume but from absolute, unshakable competence. I noticed him the first morning the way you noticed structural things, load-bearing walls, weather patterns, people who knew what they were doing, professionally relevant, nothing more. That was before the compass. By the time Daniel had calmly reorganized our situation, shelter priority, fire location, water source assessment, a radio call to base camp that was apparently standard procedure and not the emergency, I privately felt it was. The light was fully gone and the temperature had dropped in the serious way of early October in the mountains. The 3 strangers, to their credit, were functional. They gathered wood, assembled the emergency shelter with the efficiency of people who had been paying attention during the morning sessions and made no comment about whose navigation had brought us here. I was grateful for that in a way that sat somewhere between relief and shame. Daniel, moving through the camp setup with the unhurried precision of someone for whom this was genuinely not a crisis, appeared beside me as I was attempting to start a fire with hands that were less steady than I would have liked. "Here," he said and crouched beside me. He didn't take the fire striker from me. He put his hands around mine, adjusting the angle, and said, "Wrist straight, strike away from the body, steady pressure." His hands were warm despite the cold. I was aware of this in a way that felt disproportionate to the situation. The spark caught. "There," he said. He didn't move immediately, stayed crouched beside me while the kindling took, watching the fire with the focused satisfaction of someone who found genuine pleasure in things working. Then he stood and looked down at me. "You doing okay?" he said. "I'm fine."
Sera, he said my name with the patience that told me.
He'd heard "I'm fine" before and knew what it covered. "It's okay that this happened. It happens. I told everyone I knew how to use a compass. And now you know you don't," he said. "That's actually the point of the exercise." I looked up at him, the fire catching between us, and thought, I have been the most competent person in most rooms for most of my adult life, and I have no idea what to do with someone who is more competent than me and entirely unbothered about it. "That seems like an expensive lesson," I said. "They usually are," he said, and almost smiled. The emergency blanket was silver and crinkled and designed for 1 person. There were 5 of us and 3 blankets, which meant the math worked out fine except that Daniel and I ended up sharing, which neither of us commented on as a thing that required commenting on. It was practical. The temperature continued to drop. We sat with our backs against a fallen log, the blanket across both our laps, close enough that I could feel the warmth coming off him in the steady, reliable way of someone whose body ran warm. The other 3 had fallen asleep with the enviable efficiency of people who had used up all their adrenaline. Daniel and I did not sleep. "How long have you been doing this?" I said, quietly into the dark. "Search and rescue, 8 years. These courses 4. "What made you stop the active rescue work?" A pause. The fire had settled into coals, orange and low. "I didn't stop entirely, but I lost someone on a call 3 years ago. Not," he paused, "not because of anything I did or didn't do. Sometimes people are lost too long before you find them. But it changed something about how I wanted to use what I knew. He looked at the coals. Teaching felt like prevention. Getting ahead of it. I thought about that. You turned your worst experience into the thing you give other people. I tried to. He glanced at me sideways. Why are you here? And I mean the real reason, not the company requirement. I was quiet for a moment. Around us, the mountain was enormous and dark and indifferent, and somehow that made honesty easier. I don't know how to not be in charge, I said. I have been the responsible one since I was 9 years old. Oldest of 4, single mother, the whole. I made a gesture that covered it. I'm very good at managing things. I'm very bad at being managed, or helped, or I stopped. I signed up for this because I thought it would be a controlled environment where I could practice being a team player without actually needing anyone. He was quiet for a moment. How's that going? He said. I got us lost on day 3, I said. You got us here, he said gently. That's different. I turned to look at him. In the low coal light, his face was serious and close, and he was already looking at me with that steady assessment that I had been feeling on my skin since the first morning like a weather change I couldn't predict. Why does that distinction matter to you? I said. Because getting lost isn't failure, he said. It's just information. Where you are is always where you start from. He held my gaze. You can't navigate from where you wish you were. Something in my chest shifted, small, tectonic. That applies to more than navigation, I said. Most things do, he said. At some point I slept. I know this because I woke up with my head against Daniel's shoulder and his arm around me in the matter-of-fact way of someone who had made a practical decision while I was unconscious and felt no need to make it into anything more than warmth. The mountain was gray and pre-dawn and cold, and I was, for reasons I could not entirely attribute to the emergency blanket, not cold at all. I didn't move immediately. I was aware, in the specific way you were aware of things when you woke somewhere unexpected, of the weight of his arm and the steadiness of his breathing and the fact that I could not remember the last time I had fallen asleep next to someone and felt this uncomplicated about it. He was awake. I could tell by his breathing. You could have moved me, I said. You were finally relaxed, he said. Seemed a shame. I laughed. A small morning sound surprised out of me. His arm shifted slightly, not dropping, just adjusting. Base camp will send someone at first light, he said. 40 minutes, maybe. I know. We should probably. I know, I said again. Neither of us moved. The sky was doing something extraordinary at the tree line. That specific gray going pink that only happened in high places and only if you were awake early enough and paying attention. I watched it and thought about 9-year-old Sera, who had learned that paying attention meant anticipating problems, and how somewhere along the way that had become the only kind of paying attention she knew how to do. This pink at the tree line, this warm arm, this particular morning after a night that had not gone according to plan. This was the other kind. I'm not good at this, I said. At what? Letting things happen to me instead of making them happen. He was quiet for a moment. I know, he said. I've been watching you fight it for 3 days. Is it that obvious? Only because I used to do the same thing. He shifted and I sat up, and the cold immediately reoccupied the space between us. We both registered it without comment. After I lost the person on the call, I tried to control everything after that, every variable, every outcome. He looked at the pink sky, exhausting. What did you do? Came up here, he said, a lot. Mountains are very bad at caring about your need for control. I looked at the tree line. The pink was deepening, going gold at the edges. I have to go back to real life on Sunday, I said. I know. I manage 12 people and I have back-to-back meetings every day and I stopped. I don't have a lot of room for Sera. His voice was quiet and unhurried. I'm not asking you to have room for anything. I looked at him. I'm asking if you want to have coffee, he said. When we get back to base camp. Before you drive home. He held my gaze steadily. That's all I'm asking. The rescue team appeared at the tree line then, 2 figures with packs and a radio, picking their way toward us through the early light, and I watched them come and felt the familiar machinery of competence and logistics begin to reassemble itself in my chest, the part of me that would take over now. Organize the walk back, thank everyone appropriately, drive home, go back to the life I'd built on knowing what to do. I looked at Daniel. He was watching me with that patience of his, the kind that had nothing to do with waiting and everything to do with simply being present while someone else figured something out. Coffee, I said. Coffee, he said. And then the rescue team reached us, and everything became practical and organized. And I was very good at it. And through all of it, I was aware of Daniel moving through the same space, unhurried, competent, and occasionally catching my eye across the business of being found. In the parking lot afterward, in the full, unremarkable daylight, we stood next to my car with paper cups from the base, camp kitchen, and he looked different out of the wilderness, same person. Same stillness, but in a fleece jacket with a coffee cup he held with both hands. More real somehow, which was strange because I hadn't thought of him as unreal. You should finish the course, he said. Tomorrow and Sunday. I know. I looked into my cup. I'm going to. The navigation session is tomorrow morning. A pause. I'll teach it differently this time. I looked up. Differently how? Slower, he said. Less assumption that everyone comes in knowing what they think they know. I felt the corner of my mouth move. That's very diplomatic. I thought so. We stood in the thin, October sun and drank our coffee and said nothing for a while in the way of people who had spent a night in the mountains together and were finding that daylight didn't change as much as it usually did. I'm not easy, I said. Just so you know, I've been told I'm a lot. You're precise, he said, and you care about doing things right. And you've been holding everything together so long you've forgotten what it feels like to put something down. He looked at me evenly. That's not a lot. That's just a person who needs someone who doesn't need them to be smaller. The parking lot was quiet around us. Somewhere a car door closed. The mountain sat enormous and indifferent on the horizon. I thought about compasses and fire strikers and pink skies and the specific weight of an arm around your shoulders when you had stopped for one unconscious hour trying to manage everything. Finish the course, he said again, softer. I will, I said. He nodded, finished his coffee, looked at me one more time with those eyes that assessed without diminishing. Then he walked back toward the base camp building, and at the door he turned back. Just briefly, I was still standing by my car. He smiled then, the full one, the real one, and went inside. I stood in the parking lot for another minute. Then I got in my car, drove to the lodge where I was staying, and did not check my work email for the first time in 4 years. It was a start, Finn.